Alright y'all, welcome back. We've got a little bit of story problems going on today, so this is one that you really probably want to pay a little attention to if you're struggling with this, and you can go back and look at specific problems that should help you do the problems that are in the homework. And there's only 3 of them because I'm going to do 3 of the ones that were originally part of it. So let's start with example 1 here. Example 1 takes up the whole page, but really it's just, can you kind of work from information and come up with what we need? Like, for instance, this is talking about tigers in India, and it gives you the formula. Like, we don't have to derive the formula, right? It just gives it to you. So it's telling you that Y represents the number of tigers that left India, and X is the number of years. And you can see that because X is on the X-axis and Y is on the Y-axis. Use the equation to predict the number of tigers in 1960. So in 1960, that would have been 60 years after that. So X is 60, and they just plug in, you can see down here, X equals 60 into the equation to tell you how many tigers there were at that time. Okay. B says, how about 2010? So again, 2010 from 1900 is 110 years past that. Now granted, this is set to 2005, so we're not sure if that even exists, but 2010, again, 110 years. So look, they plugged in 110. They got 3,500 tigers, which is really sad if you think that they started at that in 1900. All right, then part C, determine the slope. Well, the slope is always the number next to X, so I know that right away. It's negative 350, okay? And interpret the meaning of that slope. What does that negative 350 mean, okay? Think about it. What does it mean? It means that's how many tigers left India per year. Right? And it actually says it down here. The slope means the tiger population is decreasing by 350 tigers per year. And then D says, determine the x-intercept, interpret what the x-intercept would mean. Well, the x-intercept is where y would be 0. Okay, so they plug in 0 for y, minus 42,000 to the side, and divide by the negative 350, excuse me, and you get 120. And what that means is that the number of tigers would be 0. Right? So it means specifically that in 120 years, or in the year 2020, which, by the way, is now, that there are 0 tigers. You know, I think I'm going to look that up when this is done and let you know, but I'm curious how many of those tigers if this continued on this path. All right, so got all those answers in the bottom here as well if you wanted to double check that. But then the skill practice problems is what I'd want you to do next. So I'm going to move over to the paper here. You can look at the skill practice problem while I'm doing it. And find myself a pen here to write with. And we've got skill practice number 1 here at the top, okay, is giving you the equation y equals 60x plus 100. Again, I didn't have to come up with this. It gave it to me already. And y is the cost. It says it right in the first 3 words. And x is the number of hours required for the move. So that's just the hours. So guess what? If they told me that 3 hours is my x value, I just got to plug it in here for x. So y equals 60 times 3 plus 100. You could plug that right into your calculator to spit it out for you. I'm going to do it in 2 steps. Again, you do not need to do it in 2 steps. 280. And again, what is this standing for? How much would be the charge? Okay, so put a $ in front of it. Okay, 280. For 8 hours, same kind of thing, right? Just plug in 8. 480 plus 100 gives me $580. Okay? Alright. So the third problem says, what's the slope? Well, the slope again is always the number next to x. So the slope is 60. And what does that mean? Well, in the context of this problem, we're talking about the number of hours and the cost. So 60 is literally just the amount per hour, right? 60 is the amount charged per hour. Okay. The y-intercept I know is always 0 comma whatever, so if I just plug 0 in, I can see that I get 100, or if I remember again that this number out here that's by itself is always the y-intercept, so that gives me 100. What did that stand for? What does that mean? Well, at the small company, even if I go 0 hours, they're still going to charge me $100 just for coming out. Right? So that's like our fixed fee just for just for the job. So no matter how much time, it still costs $100. That's pretty typical, guys, pretty much anywhere you go where you pay a flat fee and then you also play by the hour. Okay? All right, so next example out of the book here, example 2 if you want to flip it over a page here. Okay, and there's a lot to this one. It's giving us, again, a line, but it's also giving us 2 points, right? And it wants us to use those points to find the equation for the line. So I can look, and luckily this just gave me the 0 here, but it's not always that easy, right? So when you can see the 0, then we can do this kind of a problem. If we can't see the 0, well, we're going to have to do some work here, okay? And we're gonna do that in just a second, okay? Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, so if the 0 is 1440, I know that that's the b. So that is why they have the b here as 1440. Okay, and what they did to find the slope is they just plugged in x2, y2, x1, y1 into the slope formula here that we just got done in the last chapter, and found the slope to be $1,800. So that's my slope. And then the next problem just says, how much would it be in month 7? So guess what? They just plug 7 in. Okay, we're going to do the skill practice problem here. Hopefully you can just see that at the same time I'm going to go over it. But it's talking about soft drinks sold and at a concession stand at a softball game. And they've increased, of course, over the softball summer. So I have a couple of points here. I'm going to use that to find my graph. Okay, so let's come over here. And I'm going to show you the first thing I need to do here is plug it in. So I've got y2, which is, again, when I look at these points, right, I wrote them down already, 165 and 7, 155. Y2 is going to be 155. Y1 is 65. X2 is 7. X1 is 1. I get, of course, 6 on the bottom here. On top, I get, let's see, 90. And when I divide 90 by 6, I get 15. So that being my slope goes here. My y-intercept. Now, there are ways that I can find this, and I'm going to show you this in another example later, by just, I know that this is my equation, and I can just put kind of a plus b out here, like that. Okay, and so when I go to find this equation, I could plug in, again, either of these points. I'm just going to plug in this first point, so I get 65 equals 15 times 1 plus b. I'd multiply this to get 15, and I'd move it to the other side by subtracting 15 from both sides to get b equals 50. Now, it actually happened that in the graph you can see it's 50, right? But this is how we can do it when we can't see it. We're going to have a problem like that later. So I'm going to replace that plus b with a plus 50, because again, b is 50 because that's where it crossed the y-intercept, right? And again, we can find it by plugging it into that formula. Now 6 says, write an equation to predict the number of soft drinks sold in 10 weeks. Well, then 15 times the number of weeks, which is 10, plus 50, gives you 150 plus 50, which is, of course, 200 drinks. We're not talking about dollars here. We're not talking about money. I just want to, it's soft drinks if you want. Soft drinks, pops, whatever. Okay? All right. Last example in the book is example 3 here. And this is pretty simple. This just asks, first of all, to write the equation. Well, look, they're giving us all the information we need. In fact, $19.95 plus $1.50 per poster. If you don't have this written in your notes, you should. The word per means multiply, and it's really per poster. Poster is our x anyway. It says it right here, right? So when I'm talking about, for number 7, it would be the slope, which is the per, so 150 per t for this, in this case, minutes, okay? I'm looking at the wrong problem. I'm doing the skill practice already, getting ahead of myself. Look, so they got 150 per, that's why there's an x next to it, and then plus the 1995. Now, you see it the other way, but this is in mx plus b form, right? And then to find out 125, they just plugged it in. So here's why I got ahead of myself. For number 7, it's saying 1995 plus 10 cents per minute. Okay, so the 10 cents per minute, I did that wrong already, C equals 0.10x plus 1995, right? All right, so that's my equation for number 7. For number 8, it wants me to plug in 150. So 0.10 times 150 plus 19.95 gives me 15 bucks plus 19.95, which is of course $34.95. Okay, man, can you even like comprehend a cell phone bill of $35? That's just remarkable. All right, so let's keep going here. I want to look at problem number 9 in the book. So if you want to flip over with me, problem number 9 is on page 264. I'm asking you to do 10, which is very similar to this, and I tried to work through a lot of this so I don't have to make this video so stinking long. Number 9, it gives us this formula. This right here is the formula for number 9. Okay, and then it says in A, what would be the approximate wage in 1980? Well, it's saying that 1970 equals year 0. 0 years. That's the time when this starts. So 1980 would be 10 years later. So all I had to do was plug 10 in. And you can see my work here. I got to $3. For part B, it says predict the minimum wage in 2010. Well, if it starts at 1970, then 2010 would be 40 years later. And so I just plugged in 40 into the equation and I got $7.20. Okay? Which was a little lower than what it actually was. I think it was $9 by 2010. Part C, determine the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is where it is 0 in the graph. And if you look at the graph, that's kind of hard to see, right? It's kind of hard to see. But I would say it's about 1.5 or 1.6. Now, here's the thing. In the problem, it tells you, right? You don't have to look at the graph to do that. I know it's $1.60. So the y-intercept is 0, 1.60. And that means that $1.60 was minimum wage in 1970, right? That was the minimum wage there, $1.70 per hour. Okay. All right. So the slope, well, the slope again is that number next to x, so it's 0.14. And what does that mean? And that means basically that minimum wage went up about 14 cents, written like this, right? Otherwise, if you want to write 14 cents, you just write 14 with a cent sign, okay? Per year, okay? All right, so that's number 9. I'm going to kind of mark this off here because I feel like I'm getting a little bit crazy here. Let's look at number 16. Okay. On 16, there's a lot to it. I'm over on page, let's see, 266, number 16. Okay. As I look at what it's asking me to do on 16, it's giving me a picture. And in the picture, it gives me 2 points. So on part A, where it says use those points to find a linear equation. Well, cool. I can find the slope. So I just plugged in y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I divided out and I got 3.5. So that's my slope. Now this is a part where I probably need to zoom in a little bit and see if I can get this right. Alright, so on the next part right here, I rewrote the equation as y equals 3.5x plus b. Okay. Now from there, I knew I had a point because it gave it to me. The point was 17, 57.75. I got it right from the graph. This is my x and this is my y. So I plugged that in to the x and the y to find out what b is, right? I times this through to get 5950. I subtracted it to both sides, so those cancel, and this minus this gave me a b of negative 1.75. Okay, cool. So I got that and wrote the equation. 3.5x, because it's my slope, minus $1.75. Okay. I could have found the same thing had I used the other point. Had I put 24 right here and $82.25 here, and guess what? It would still give me negative 1.75 either way. Okay. All right. So part B says, what's the slope? Well, the slope is 3.5, and of course that means that 3.5 inches of height for every 1 inch of arm length. If you look at the problem, that's what it's talking about. For every 3.5 inches that you grow, your arms grow 1 inch as well. Okay. And then for part C, it's just saying estimate a person's height based on their arm length of 21.5. So I plugged in 21.5 here. I multiplied and subtracted and got 73.5, which for this problem means 73.5 inches, or 6 foot is 72 inches. So 6 foot 1.5 inches. Okay. All right. Let me zoom this back out here and talk about 19. Okay. On 19, it says the cost to rent a car Y for 1 day is $20 plus 0.25 per mile. Again, I see that 0.25 per mile, that 0.25 per mile means multiply. Per means times, right? Like, how many miles did I go over 3 hours if I went 30 miles per hour? 30 miles per hour means that per one. And then for 3 hours, I would just times it by 3, right? Okay, and then plus, and it says this right in the problem, plus 20. That's it. That's the equation. For part B, use the equation to compute the cost of driving 258 miles. So 0.25 times 258 plus 20. Oh, what is that? That'd be 129. That'd be, you know what? I don't know that off the top of my head. So I should probably go look that up. Let's call it, yeah, just plug it in like this, right? I don't need to know what a quarter of 258 is. Plug it in as 0.25 times 258 plus 20, and you get $84.50. Okay. All right. So there's a lot here. It's about as long a video as it's been all the way along. The homework here is literally just trying these pages. So page 264 through 267, and you're only trying numbers 10, 15, and 20, plus the practice test. Okay, I will have that posted on Canvas for you, but that is absolutely critical to do to prepare you for the most important things for this class, which are your tests. So make sure you do the practice test, all of it. Compare it to my answers, which I will post tomorrow night, or excuse me, tonight, whatever day you're watching this, that night, and know what questions to ask for tomorrow when we get to that test. I would probably just focus on those two things today and not worry about the project at all. Just focus on working through those 3 problems to make sure you got that. There will not be a homework quiz tomorrow because there is a test tomorrow. So make sure that you are also working through the practice test. And treat it as your own. Work on it, or as a test, excuse me. Work on it on your own. Find some time where you can not be bothered and do it. But maybe after you're done, reach out and talk to somebody about what they got. Right? Check your answers of mine. If you don't get something, contact somebody from our list and talk to them about it. Okay? All right. That's it for this. Enough talking. Try to get it under 18. See y'all.